Good evening. This is the Monday, March 4th meeting of the Nominations and Appointments Committee. My name is Chris Miller. I'm counselor for District 6. And beside me is Counselor Vanessa Campos from District 1, Counselor Wesley Butler from District 4. Tonight, we have 3 applicants. One is an appointment and the other 2 are for reappointments. The first applicant is Andrew Boyd, who is here for interviewing for Blighted Property Review Committee. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, sir.
The process is that the 3 of us will take turns asking you questions. Just answer them, naturally as you can. It's not like a interrogation.
Oh, no.
Okay, perfect. And then when we're done, if you have any questions for us, we'll be happy to answer them, for sure. So I'll start and then we'll take turns. My question to you is, why the Blighted Property Review Committee and how did you learn about it?
Sure. So I think when we think about blight, we think about the city, we think of properties in misuse, I suppose. And it's interesting because I hear the word blight and I think of buildings that are, run down. And of course, there's several definitions in the charter about what constitutes blight. But really, at the end of the day, it's a vacant property, I believe. And so I think with that, when we're thinking about what the goal of the city is, a city, I think, operates as an economic unit, right? And it's to create the maximum amount of prosperity and wealth for the greatest number of people. I think cities are terrific at that. But I think there are numerous things that can get in the way of that goal, and blight is one of them. Vacant properties that are misused or out of repair, or a sight unsore eyes sort of thing. It could be a number of those things. And so I think ultimately, in addition to when you think about a city being a place where prosperity can be created, it's also one in which a whole body, the whole community takes part and sort of chips in the effort. And so I think as I've been growing up, I've sort of seen maybe it's time for me to be involved a bit more in the goings-ons of the city. And I think that's the wonderful thing about all these sort of committees or boards where it has citizen participation, right? I think that was one of the things the Vacant Property Review Board in the 1970s, from what I could tell on what the information sheets provided, that was mainly city administrators, which is, I'm sure they had a lot of success maybe. But I think it's also really valuable to have buy-in from the community and action from the community. And so I think when it comes to why I particularly would like to be on this board, I think I see an opportunity to serve my community and to reduce blight.
And how did you find out about this?
Sure, yes, I think I reached out to Mayor Moran, and I was sort of asking, is there any particular spot where we're seeing more citizen engagement could be beneficial? And I sort of talked with them about, different areas. Like I was interested in redevelopment authority, especially housing. Housing is such a pressing need across. It's fascinating because it's a national issue, but you go down, it's really localized, right? A lot of power is in the locality sort of thing. But I was talking with them and they came back and they said, well, the Blighted Property Review Committee, that's currently, back when I was talking with them, it was a bit iffy about meeting quorum. And so they sort of said, we'd recommend you look into this and see if you're interested. And I think it lined up really well with what I'm interested in.
I thank you for your interest, Andrew, in stepping up and taking that initiative. You don't have you haven't been in boards before and you're like, let me just be part of something. So I appreciate that. Thank you for applying. So my question is, in your occupation, you're a software developer, and I see that one of the volunteers opportunity listed here was the Hope Rescue Mission, which is great. What other background would you say you can bring to the Blighted Property Review Committee so that you're able to contribute?
Sure, I think that's a great question because ultimately my application was, I guess, somewhat barren in that regard. I'm not necessarily involved in a whole lot. I would like to increase my involvement, but in terms of, what I bring, I think I do bring an interest in cities, I think. An interest in what makes the best community. It's not necessarily, the tallest building, right? It's a number of things and it's about use and getting use back on track. So in terms of other areas, other interests that I have that I can apply onto this, I'm interested in economics and cities and sort of doing reading on that. I think it's very interesting.
Do you have educational background or courses or certificates that would help you in the?
No, that's probably going to be a no. I'm interested in that stuff, but nothing related to real estate or any sort of thing like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, take one question, but I have another one.
It happens to me too.
Again, thank you, Andrew, for wanting to be on this board and applying. My first question is, what do you think would improve the quality of Reading's housing stock?
Sure, it's an interesting question because I think it depends on the scope we're looking at. Particularly in the role of being on the blighted property review committee, I think it's a matter of being detail oriented and being on the ball with these things. Obviously, for any number of reasons, things can get caught up in the processes, and it's important to make sure we're doing these processes correctly. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're dealing with homes, right? We're dealing with places where people can live, and it's important, vitally important, that we get that back on track. Personally, this is something I find very interesting. From a municipal level, and maybe this is more of a county level as well, I'm interested in land value taxation, which is basically, it's like property taxation, except less on the building and more on the underlying land, right? And I think that plays in well when we're thinking about blighted property, right? If you have a building that's run down, that's going to be assessed at a lower value compared to the neighbor right next door that's probably doing a lot to keep their home in good shape, right? And so it's sort of this disparity that I think when you subtract the building, whatever building is on top, and put the taxation on the underlying land value, then owners of that plot of land will be incentivized to create the most amount of value as possible. And that means different things. Obviously, you're not going to put a big apartment complex out in a lower density area, but I think ultimately we're called to be good stewards of the land, I think, from my perspective. And so I think that plays into a lot of different policies. Then also, of course, land use and zoning policies are a big part of that, and making sure that you could have a blighted property that was next to a factory, and maybe the factories move away. And so if that's strictly zoned for residential and there's not a whole lot of opportunity there, could zoning be changed to sort of bring opportunity back? That's well beyond the scope of what I'd be looking to do, but I think ultimately it goes into how do you design a city to foster growth and opportunity. So in terms of it's interesting because the word used was quality, right? Quality, but it also quantity ultimately, depending on where we are in the city. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes, that did.
Okay, awesome.
And you mentioned earlier about the quorum problem with this committee, and so I'm not sure, but the board meets on the first Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. Would you be regularly able to attend meetings?
Yes, that's no issue.
All right, that was my last question. Chris.
I just have one more question. I know you mentioned that you did some research.
Sure.
Did you watch any of the blighted property hearings?
I have in the past, and those meetings, there's meetings, I'm not sure if it was, I believe it was blighted property, but owners that are working with the committee to sort of go through this process, right? And that's I think a very interesting sort of aspect where you're not just like here's a vacant property, let's ship it off to the redevelopment authority as quick as possible, right? I think that's an important aspect, this engagement with the owner of the property, because you could have an owner who lives down in Florida and is just like, hey, I'm holding on to this land, so don't do anything with it. But there's also a lot of other owners who are saying, I'm working on this, I'm getting things in a row, I'm working to redevelop and make sure, all the back paid taxes are paid and all that sort of stuff. And so, yes, I'm familiar with the
That's
meetings.
important because I think a lot of people don't realize this committee not only dealing with properties, also deals with people.
Right,
So
for sure.
That's very great answer.
It was very interesting, it sort of like sits at the nexus of a lot of, because like along the process, where do we hear about the vacant properties? It could be from the, I suppose, surrounding neighbors could file a concern they might have, but it's also codes board, correct, if I'm not mistaken. They might say, hey, this property is failing codes, this is an issue. And so from that point, we get that on the intake on the process. And from there, it's working with the people, right? It's working with the owner, working with the community, not to like throw out the property or hide it, sweep it under the rug, but ultimately to restore it back to valuable use. So that's an interesting aspect of it all.
Okay. Did you have any questions for us?
I suppose this is a small question. I was just curious. I was reading through the charter, and one of the aspects of the charter, if I have the language right, is that properties cannot be passed on to the redevelopment authority if the zoning allows for greater than 10 occupancies. Am I mistaken? It's something I read just on the BPRC charter.
Because it would be zone commercial.
Is that what it would be?
I'm not familiar with it, but that's even, yeah.
It was one of the last line items. It was interesting because something like the effect of the property can reside 10 or more occupants. Like it might be a different pathway for rehabilitation and redevelopment. Obviously you're dealing with a larger property, so there could be other considerations. I was just curious. It seemed very interesting.
That's a good question. How are you gonna make me have to go research that?
There we go. So I'm sure there's a lot of, and that's the funny thing too, right? Because it's just in anything. I mean, working in software, I see the complexity every day. I remember, being this bright-eyed software student. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go into this job. I'm going to fix everything up. It's going to be beautiful. But then you realize the company I work at has been around since the 1980s doing software, and it's just this building up of complexity to create a better product. But then you delve into that complexity, and if you're not careful, you can lose your head. And it's the same thing with government. It's like, why is this thing in the charter? Well, it could be back from the 60s or 70s or 80s, and they could have very good reasons for doing that, and I think it's a matter of saying, do those good reasons still apply? Because you can't just tear that out of the charter. There needs to be thought and consideration into the things we do.
It's an interesting response. The challenge was already been there and why, so that we can bring it up to speed to what we're seeing now.
For sure.
Thank
For
you.
sure, yeah. And every decade provides different challenges
Correct.
to cities, people, countries. It's interesting.
Cities are ever evolving.
Absolutely.
All right, so Shelley will explain the process from this point on, because she does such a good job at it.
So council is fortunate with the Blighted Property Review Committee, they have more applicants than there are seats available now. So the committee will discuss all of the applicants and then decide who will move forward. Once they make that decision, I'll send you an email so you know what the status is. If you are chosen, then you'll also get a packet from the office with all your official paperwork and the resolution. So I'll be in touch with you as we move through.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much.
And
Nice meeting you.
when you leave, would you let Mr. Hospital know that we can come in?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So long. Thank you.
Right there.
These applicants are from District 4.
Are
Do you
they?
realize that?
Oh, wow.
Almost
Oh,
said something
nice.
about the district.
Yes, tonight's our all district.
Yes. Funny, because we probably have the least blighted properties.
Yeah.
Bob,
I have
Are
to
you-
begin by apologizing to you.
why?
When we came down for our roast dinner, you know, the roast pork,
Yes,
I was confused.
and you thought I was.
I thought, I said Kathleen went over to pay for the food. I wasn't really paying attention. And I thought you were the guy that was handing me the food.
I would have handed you your food.
Well, you held on to it real tight when I grabbed it. Good seeing you again.
Good to see you. So Bob and his wife were at the Inn at Center Park when they had takeout pork and sauerkraut for New Year's. That's what he's referring to.
Okay.
All right, now I know you've been through this process before because you're already on this board, correct? So this will be somewhat routine. The three of us, so also, if you're not, you better be familiar with the guy down at the end, he's your councilman, Wes Butler, and Vanessa Campos from District 1. So we will take turns just asking you, some questions. Nothing too complicated, just basic questions, and then when we're done, if you have any questions for us, feel free to ask.
Okay.
So you've been on the Board of Health for how long?
Approximately 4 or 5 years.
It's 10. You were first
No,
on
come
in
on.
2013.
No,
I just
no,
looked it up.
no.
I looked it up because they always ask this during reappointment interviews, and you have been on since 2013.
Time flies.
4 or 5
Yeah, right, times 2. So your time on the Board of Health, I know we've interviewed other people, and of course, because of the time frame, probably the biggest issue that's come along in many, many years is the fact that we went through COVID. But in addition to that, what other issues have there been that the Board of Health has had to deal with?
I think the two most prominent ones that I recall were when we worked on the tattoo ordinance.
Okay,
And I know we did work on the question about the number of animals that could be kept in individual properties and the types of animals, whether or not you could have like poultry in your yard.
that is really interesting. I think of all the interviews that I've done for the Board of Health, that is the first time I've ever heard about both of those. And that's, both of those are really important. So that's good to hear. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the general public that didn't realize that either. So I'm glad you said that. In the 10 years that you've been on, can you say what are the things that work well and what are the things that you think could be improved?
I don't have any particular ideas of how things could be improved. I think things run pretty well.
Okay, that's a good answer. I mean, you're on the board, and I'm not, that's why I asked. Okay, I'm gonna pass it along to my fellow counselors.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for coming. So my question is, are there any issues that the city could assist with?
That would probably be a question better posed to John Denhoff. But I think we've worked on some things that have had to do with drugs and medicines that have been sold, perhaps not quite legally through the various corner bodegas. And I know that it was mentioned a while back to try to get information out to the local residents to maybe make them aware that maybe that's not the right thing to do.
All right, hey, Robert. My question is, what got you interested in this board when you first started?
I got on this board as a favor for my neighbor. There have been, I guess, over the years, problems of various boards being able to maintain a quorum successfully. And amazingly, 10 years ago. John asked me if I would be willing to serve on the board. You know, and as a community person, you know, local citizen, and I said yes.
As a little background, I serve as staff to this board, and they are, membership is pretty specific. There are, I'm not sure that's in the packet, it's in the ordinance. There needs to be a position and, someone who's certified in very specific different things. There's also a resident and then 2 alternates, so Bob serves as the resident.
Thank you, Shelley. You're welcome.
That's good to know.
And then, I'm sure I'd like to hear from you that you've been regularly attending meetings.
Yes, I don't think I've missed many.
Is it from?
Any other questions?
Just thank you for staying this long. Like you went in as a favor and you're out close to 10 years, is it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
I have no more questions. Did you have any questions for any of us?
I'm sorry.
Oh, do you have a question? Go ahead, Wes.
No, just because I wrote it down. Correct me if I was wrong, but you said a tattoo ordinance.
Mhm.
Can you explain more about that?
See, I told you people would be interested.
There are specific requirements of tattoo parlors that have to do with their location and many specific requirements concerning safety issues, sterilization of needles,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
safety with the inks.
The types of ink, what body parts are pierceable. You know, that kind of, you know, what surgery, what's a piercing, what's a tattoo, so they went into a lot of detail with that.
Which is not public knowledge, right? Like it's not.
Yeah. Unless you go for a tattoo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just, I have tattoos, that's why I was like, oh, wait, I feel like there's something
Very,
I should,
very popular.
there's something I should know.
Yeah, it seems as though it wasn't popular for quite a while. And then all of a sudden it exploded. When I was a kid, my uncle, who had been just merchant marine. In the summertime, he would take off his shirt to work in the yard. He had this gigantic 3-masted ship,
Wow.
sails.
Yeah, I think there was like a certain age. I know when I was a kid, the guys that would like come out of the service and they would like have a tattoo on their arm.
I
and they
think
could
sometimes,
flex the muscle and.
I think sometimes on the late, might be too many, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then there was sort of like the era of no tattoos, and then there was the era of everybody had a tattoo.
Yeah.
Okay,
I remember once when I was a kid, that we used to get, they were on paper.
oh, sure,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the temporary tattoos.
Are we good?
Shelley, do you want to explain the process from the interview to the next step?
Sure, so the committee will discuss your reappointment, and assuming that it moves forward again, then you'll hear from me that you've been reappointed, you'll get that packet in the mail again, and it'll be all good.
Okay,
Okay,
very good.
Thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you for coming, yes. Shelley, I'm gonna head out to the back. Okay, you can check it on. Kathy.
yeah, Kathy,
Okay. Okay. She's here, I'll be right back.
okay.
Good one.
And Kathy serves in what capacity?
She is a retired registered nurse,
And that's her position as a.
that's her position on the board, yep.
Okay.
I will make a note to send all of you the different requirements.
Categories.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Hello. Hello. Have a seat. How you doing? Vanessa, back. Just gonna take a breather for a couple of minutes until Councilor Campos comes back.
I got a text before, about 4:15, and it said, the meeting, 4 o'clock, Zoom. So I.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the link for people who wanted to come in,
Oh,
because we let them do either way. No, don't panic, that's why it says if you're coming in, come to the
Yeah.
pen room, and if you don't know where it is, here's how to find it,
Yeah.
See that you put down you volunteer at St. Joe's Church Bazaar. That's, I'm there all the time. See, this year I decided instead of buying, I'm gonna donate
Oh.
lots.
We're pricing already.
Are you?
Yeah, we've been. Every time we're gonna go in and we would clear out one of the rooms, there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's interesting, it's like a treasure hunt.
Well, be prepared, there'll be a
Okay.
lot more coming from me. The last, I can't remember, I think it was the winter one. It was so packed, that I didn't even bother to like look around. I just went and got some food and left.
Yeah, the food's a big draw though.
Yeah, the food is always good. It's a good event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Patience.
Gonna get started. Kathy, the three of us, myself, Chris Miller from District 6, my fellow counselors, Vanessa Campos from District 1, and Leslie Butler from District 4, will take turns in asking you some general questions.
Okay.
And, just answer them as honestly as you want. It's not like a interrogation. We just want to get a better idea of what the board is about and your involvement. And then when we're done, if you have any questions, if you want to ask us, just feel free. So I know this is a reappointment, and I'll probably ask the same questions that I just asked Bob Hospodor that was here. How long have you been on this board?
I think it's 10 years.
Okay. That's
Yes.
good, and you do, because he did.
Oh. And time flies sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I said. He thought he'd only
I
been on
enjoyed,
for
I
5.
enjoyed it, The only thing I wish we would do more, I thought by coming on the board, I thought we'd go raiding into restaurants and things like that. It was more dramatic in my mind,
So that's interesting that you should say that. I have a two-part question. One, how did you get interested in being on the Board of Health? And the second one is in regards to the comment you just made of, I wish we could do more. What is that more?
Well, Dr. Wong got a hold of me. You remember?
I do.
I do.
We were at the shore, and I saw him, then we were talking, he said, oh, by the way, I said, oh, okay, because he knew I was, I think I just retired at that time. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is interesting, and doing more, I guess that's not in our scheme of things to go into like restaurants and, and things like that, but I'd like to be like a mouse, sitting there and watching some of these things. But, that wasn't it. I could thought we could have capes on and go into that. But, the things we did, I think our big thing with the tattoo ordinances, which was nice. And then we had the animal thing, that. And we almost got into chickens, and I think then COVID started or something.
Yeah, that was the live market they wanted to have downtown.
Yeah,
That you would buy a live chicken and they would slaughter it for you.
Where was that?
In Penn, they wanted to put it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think COVID came, and I think that was the end
Yeah,
of that. I haven't heard anything.
I haven't either. That circles around every couple of years.
Oh, okay. I still have my stuff from the last chicken thing. The flyers and everything, yeah.
So is there anything that you feel that the board should be doing?
Well, I don't know what our scope is. It would be nice if we'd be recognized more by the state or whatever. I mean, we're not in that, we're just a Board of Health, you don't have a whole lot of say, I don't believe. And nothing comes down to us directly. We hear it like secondhand from the people in Allentown, that would be nice, if we'd hear that. And I don't really wouldn't mind going into the school.
For education?
And education and just seeing, I go into read. And if they're refreshing, the kids. But just seeing, what they do and the hygiene things, the techniques. But I don't know, we're there, and if we need to pass something, usually there's a quorum there.
Oh, yeah, we do.
We've been pretty good with that. But it would be nice if we just had a larger part, but I'm not sure what we can do.
Okay, well, that's a good answer. I'm gonna pass it to my fellow counselors.
Okay.
Kathy, I appreciate that you're a retired nurse, is it?
I'm sorry.
Retired nurse?
Yes, St.
Wow.
Joe's, 40 years at St. Joe's.
Wow. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for being part of this board to share your knowledge and experience. What are some issues that the city could assist the board with?
The mission.
What are some issues
Issues.
that the city could assist with?
Oh. Well, I guess we have, the people that do go around inspecting the restaurants, so that's a big part, but I'd love to help them out.
Like codes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the health inspectors.
Yes. Yeah. I just,
Thank you.
and just. Like going into the schools, there's an issue, something. I don't know what else, how far
Right,
we can poke ourselves.
to engage more.
Yeah.
Hey Kathy, good to see you again.
Same here.
Appreciate everything you do for this board and appreciate you wanting to.
We appreciate
It's
you
that
representing our district.
thing.
Hmm.
My question is, can you talk about a health issue that the board had to deal with and how it was resolved in the past few years?
You know what, this. I think we can be.
For any topics in the past year you guys have, spoken frequently about at meetings?
That would be the tattoo thing.
That's your.
Yeah. That was, and you know what, it was really an eye opener. How everybody was cooperative with that, we didn't have anybody carrying on. So that was nice. I don't know if these things are still being carried through with maybe new parlors or something.
It should be good.
part of the city's inspection requirements, so they should be,
Oh, and that's good.
yeah.
And then, again, I know you're retired, but something I always ask, are you able to, in the future, regularly attend meetings for this board?
For this,
Yes.
oh, yeah. It's part of retirement, that's nice. That's it.
That's it for me.
Did you have any questions for us?
I don't think so.
I know you've been through this before.
But, yeah, but I want to thank you for giving that money to the pool, to college man, because that means a lot. That has nothing to do with the health. It keeps the kids' mind healthy. when they-
Recreational help.
Yeah, when they have a place to go, and that's really, yeah, those, I know those people have worked hard, you know, to keep everything afloat, but I get off the subject, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, Shelley will explain the process from this point on.
Okay.
So the committee will discuss your interview, and if you are reappointed, well, either way, you'll hear from me, one way or the other. Whether you're reappointed or not, and if you are, then you'll get that packet in the mail with all your updated paperwork.
Okay,
Okay,
that sounds good.
all right,
That's it.
that's
That's
it.
it. Thank you for,
That was painless.
we try.
Nice meeting you, nice meeting you.
Yes, I'm meeting you, Kathy.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You
Too. Bye.
Okay, so I guess we need to discuss the applicants.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to determine Kathy and Bob first, and
Yes.
then start talking about the three.
Right.
employment.
I think because we have more applicants than we have positions, that's gonna be a longer conversations for blighted property, but for the Board of Health. And the fact that these are both reappointments, I don't have any problems. I think it's important for people who have already existed on a board. There's a history there of things that they've already dealt with. That's important to keep in mind for future conversations and decisions. And so I'm in agreement to both the two applicants for the Board of Health.
I agree, so too.
I agree as well.
Okay, so that was easy. Now,
And then just quickly for blighted property, you're choosing 2 full appointments and 1 alternate appointment. So nobody will be turned away, it's just whether
right,
which
the
role
position.
they will
Okay.
play.
So can you specify, Shelley, what does alternate mean?
So the alternate would attend the meetings to make sure there's a quorum. They would be involved in the hearing process. In case someone's at the determination hearing but can't be at the certification hearing or vice versa. So that action doesn't have to be delayed. There would always be someone kind of in the queue to step in that would remain informed so that action could be taken if necessary.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So who wants to start the conversation?
I can start and say that, I'm gonna say Anne and Jamie. They both have the background and the experience. It says it in their application and in their resume that they can bring to the blighted. I would suggest Anthony to be, Andrew, I'm sorry, to be the alternate, because he's not turned down, he can come in. I do appreciate his enthusiasm, that fresh perspective, we need that. And I commend him for just stepping up and saying, I don't know what to do, but I wanna do something, like, I appreciate that. And as he was talking, I saw the value of being a software analyst or engineer, like, there's a way that your mind thinks in that field that would be helpful. There's a lot of reading and a lot of going through and terminologies and things. And he was saying how he was doing his research. So I really admire that. Like, you prepared yourself a little bit of what you were getting into and still are interested and apply. I would just go solely on that because of the background experience that the other two brought, were a little stronger than his. But he definitely did make a good impression for me. The others did great, but he just stood out, maybe he's the last, or maybe just because you can see that freshness he's bringing. So that's my, 2 cents on that.
Seem to be reading my mind today.
Oh, no.
Everything that you just said, I was thinking. It's hard to not look at Jamie and Ann's background and say they should be in those 2 seats. I do think Andrew, when we asked him like about, well, can you tell us basic information about the board? I saw the enthusiasm and the fact that for this meeting, he looked at why this board was created and how the board handles things. So I do appreciate that from him. But in terms of the experience that Jamie and Ann have with just properties in general, it's hard not to say that they're not a step above them. But I think he'll be a great alternate though, because he'll be enthusiastic and he won't sort of look at it like it's an alternate position. I may or may not be at a meeting making a decision, you know, kind of like just slacking off during the meeting or not showing up. I think he'll continue to regularly attend.
And to add to that, I think it would build his experience,
Yeah.
so. I thought we had to turn someone down, so
Yeah,
I like
I
that you
thought that too.
clarified that, no, no, okay, good. All right, your turn.
I'm close, but not completely on the same page. I think we're all in agreement with Ann Woodward based on her background. I also think it's important, I don't know if this is politically correct, but the fact that the board has a woman on it now that's leaving to replace with another woman is important to show.
Diversity.
Exactly. But that's not the only reason, also because of her background in real estate and also in construction, which I think is important when you're trying to make a decision about a property and its condition. The other two, all 3 were really great. I mean, they all bring something, but not the same thing to the table, which makes it hard. Jamie, when I read his background, I think he would be the perfect candidate to be on either zoning or planning based on his background. And I don't know if there's any openings or not, but
There are.
And that brings another question, like, can we suggest other, like, I don't know, we can, because they didn't apply to it, but there's so many.
and the
that-
reason why I say that, like on the zoning board, they're great board members, but a lot have come for reappointments and said, I've been on the board a while, I'd really like to step down, but until there's somebody to replace me, I will be here. And so, you know, when I see somebody who applies and has a background that says, I have that background in zoning and planning, I think maybe this is a better fit than this, or maybe it's just a conversation we need to have
Mhm.
at another time. In other words, if Jamie were to become the alternate and an opening would happen on zoning, it wouldn't be as much of a hardship because she's an alternate.
So there is no opening in zoning right now.
There's an alternate opening in zoning right now, but you're right, several members have said, this is my last term. I'm gonna do one more.
And that's something I wouldn't
So-
have known, but
Yeah.
because you guys have been doing this for so long,
Yeah.
you're aware of, that's very
Yeah.
interesting.
And Andrew, you're right, like he's young, he's new, but the thing that really struck me was when I asked him, I said, how did you hear about the blighted property review committee? And he said that he had a conversation with the mayor, which means that he made the initial,
Initiate, yeah.
right? But then he said, and then I researched it. And I thought, that deserves a lot of
Those
credit, that
skills.
you wanted to find out everything you could
Mhm.
before you applied for this position. And I think it's important to try to get some younger people involved in all the boards. boards. Because we're starting to see, well, like with the Board of Health, I mean. Probably fall in the category too, where we're not as young as like Andrew. It's important to get the next generation involved, so.
And he was inquisitive, he was
Right.
very into, and you need that, you can't just sit on these boards and like whatever everybody say, look into it, but do some research, and then again, it's tied with the software, like this is what you do, you dig in, and he mentioned it out of his own words, so.
So, even though his background isn't specifically in construction or real estate or building, he seems to be the type of person that's a self-motivator that would try to find out as much information. I also think the fact that he does have a background in technology, there's gotta be part of that, that would be an asset.
Oh, it's all that analytical thinking
Yeah.
that he would do,
Right.
yeah.
But all of these boards involve the paperwork and the reading and documentation that you're going to need to be in it. So I agree with Chris, if there is a conversation that we can have, I didn't even know this even existed, that we can recommend this instead of this and then see what they say. I don't know what our options are here.
Yeah, I can do that, and, if you wanna offer him the blighted property alternate, or the zoning alternate, you would determine how you want me to approach him.
I would
and
say-
reach back out to the applicant.
I would say to start off with zoning, only because my fear is we're gonna end up with multiple board members saying they want to step down at a close to the same time, and we're gonna lose a lot of knowledge.
Yes.
We'll have like a brain drain, and if we can have a slow transition of new members as older members decide to step down, that's probably the healthiest way for the board. But, I mean, if he's not interested in zoning, then as the alternate,
Would you agree as the alternate for the lighted then, instead of like for Jamie?
I would agree on it, but I would also say to him, and this is how I feel about the zoning board, I feel that I would want my more experienced, people who know about properties, realtor, all that stuff. If I had to choose what board they would be on, I feel like the zoning board would be over blighted property review committee. That's how I think. So I'd be saying it to him as, we feel you're heavily qualified to not only be on this board, but to take a step up to zoning. That's how I feel about it.
okay, I understand where you're coming from,
He's a
but
lighted review, he's a member as
I
well.
know.
Be careful.
Here's the thing you need to remember, and I think Andrew touched on it slightly, that where the city is right now, the combination of the blighted property review committee and redevelopment are like the two departments, if things can move as they should, like a well-greased machine, to deal with the situation of blight at the height that it is in the city right now is like a top priority, so neither of those departments really can be like not functioning. They're sort of, it seems like they're regrouping now.
We hope, yes.
We hope, but if things move in the right direction where enough people are on the boards that we start to get things moving, it'll take care of a major problem in the city right now. I think everybody's in agreement that blight is probably one of the biggest issues affecting the city of Reading right now, so. Because zoning is
The
important,
big list of properties.
I wouldn't say one is more important than the other, I think they're both very important boards.
Oh, no, I do too, I just think, and you, again, you're at the meetings, but I think in terms of determining if a property is blighted or not. I don't look at, Andrew's resume and say, well, he wouldn't be able to determine that. This in terms of decision making. But as you see with zoning and the zoning issues that have came to council, we're seeing with their decisions. In terms of not only talking about developers coming into town, wanting to have apartment buildings and decisions that, those are some big decisions that I've say in the past years, at least since I've been on council, have been more of a topic than determining if a property is blighted or not.
You're right, because the projects are probably larger in scale versus. It would be like less properties larger in scale versus many smaller units, but in mass. So
That's the way, that's,
Yeah.
that's how I think about it.
Yeah, it's like smaller pieces of the puzzle, but I understand.
So what are we, so what is Shelley's next step? You will reach out to,
I will reach out to Jamie to see if he is willing to serve as an alternate on the zoning hearing board. And then do you want to appoint Andrew and Ann then as full members of Blight?
so if he doesn't want to be on the zoning,
It would be an alternate for,
On Blight.
on the blight. Okay. So are we okay with Andrew and Anne being on the seat? Okay, I'm good too. Yeah.
good.
That's
That was a
good
really good
discussion.
conversation.
Yeah, it was, because you brought in the background I didn't have, I didn't even know this is the option, so I'm learning, I'm excited. See, this is a fun meeting, I said that last time, I said I'm always learning. Yeah,
It's always interesting to me to hear the applicants of
yeah.
why they're involved, why they want to be involved. And for me, it's good to know that there are people that care enough to give of themselves and their time. Because a lot of people just wouldn't, they'd say.
But I'm learning a lot about the boards with the reappointments.
Mhm.
There's so much, the plumbing boards, the health, I'm like, wow, and even Weston was like, the tattoo, what's going on? Like, so it's a privilege to be here and get it like firsthand, this is what's going on, because we don't interview them all the time, it's like a meeting. So I appreciate it, I'm happy, I did a good choice.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, meeting adjourned.
So moved is what you say.
Right, thank you.